I'm a human too. I have a family. I have two kids who are devastated by these comments.
If you want to understand why the WNBA front office is currently in a state of absolute panic-induced rage, you have to look past the high production value and the cool music. You have to look at what this ad represents, a declaration of independence that has effectively started a civil war within women's professional basketball. For years, the WNBA has operated on a philosophy of the collective. They market the 144. They push the idea that the league is a sisterhood, where the shield comes first. But Nike just took that playbook and threw it into a bonfire. The From Anywhere campaign is a masterclass in what we call semiotic separation. It was surgically designed to strip away every traditional WNBA branding element and replace it with a single transcendent icon, Caitlin Clark. When you watch this spot, you aren't seeing a WNBA player. You're seeing a global entity. There are no WNBA logos on her jersey. There are no highlights of her playing against the Dallas Wings or the Las Vegas Aces. Instead, we see her in a snowy driveway, a lone figure in a monochromatic cinematic landscape that feels more like a Batman movie than a basketball commercial. This is the visual language of the hero's journey, the same aesthetic Nike used to build the legends of Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods. By situating Clark in this isolated environment, Nike is telling the world that her greatness isn't a product of the WNBA system. It's intrinsic. It's something she brought with her from Iowa. And the focus isn't on the league's orange hoodie logo. It's on the double C. That's Clark's personal brand architecture, and it's now officially in direct competition with the league's own trademark. But the real controversy, the part that really has the veterans and the league office grinding their teeth, is who Nike chose to put in the room with her. In a traditional passing of the torch narrative, you'd expect to see the legends. You'd expect Cheryl Swoops, Lisa Leslie, or Sue Bird to show up and give their blessing. Their absence isn't an accident. It is a deliberate, pointed choice. Instead of the WNBA matriarchs, Nike surrounded Clark with male cultural titans. You've got Travis Scott bringing the hypebeast streetwear credibility. You've got the Kelce brothers, the kings of sports media, positioning her as a peer to the NFL's elite. You've even got Michael Che, referencing her Saturday Night Live appearance and cementing her status as a mainstream celebrity who transcends the sports pages. This casting is a direct rebuttal to the gatekeepers of women's basketball. Nike is saying very loudly that Caitlin Clark doesn't need the blessing of the old guard. She has the endorsement of the broader culture. She doesn't need to be validated by the players who came before her because she's already been validated by the world at large. The timing of this was a tactical masterpiece. By dropping this on Christmas morning, Nike forced a comparison between Clark and the biggest names in the NBA and NFL. They didn't want her compared to her WNBA peers. They wanted her in the same breath as LeBron James or Patrick Mahomes. They stole the show from the men's leagues on their biggest day of the year. But there was another target in their sights, the Unrivaled League. Founded by Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, Unrivaled was supposed to be the great disruptor. It promised an equity-based model, offering players ownership stakes and massive salaries to stay in the US during the offseason. They aggressively courted Clark, offering her a Lionel Messi-style deal worth over $1 million for just a few weeks of work. She turned them down. And then, just weeks before Unrivaled was set to tip off its inaugural season in January 2026, Nike dropped this ad. Within 24 hours, the view counts for Clark's 30-second spot exceeded the engagement metrics for the entire Unrivaled roster reveal combined. It was a kinetic weapon. Nike sucked all the oxygen out of the room, proving that Clark doesn't need a player-run league to get paid. She has the backing of the global corporate machine. This didn't just hurt Unrivaled's marketing, it humiliated their narrative. It showed that while Stewart and Collier are trying to build a collective to gain leverage, Clark can stand alone and achieve more. This brings us to the internal crisis at WNBA headquarters. Commissioner Cathy Engelbert is reportedly furious, viewing this as a rogue operation, and you can see why. This ad serves as a high-budget visual middle finger to the Lucky Stars controversy from October 2025. Remember, that was when the commissioner allegedly told players they should be on their knees thanking their lucky stars for the media deal she secured. That comment was seen as patronizing, a master-servant dynamic that poisoned the well with the players. Now look at the Nike ad. It shows a player whose personal commercial appeal just for one shoe launch likely had a production budget higher than some WNBA game broadcasts. The ad argues that Clark doesn't need to thank her lucky stars for the WNBA. The WNBA needs to thank its lucky stars for Clark. It shifts the leverage entirely away from the league office. How do you discipline or manage a player who is visibly bigger than the institution itself? The economic disparity here is quite frankly grotesque. Let's look at the numbers. Caitlin Clark's base WNBA salary is roughly $76,000. Her Nike deal, that's valued at around $3.5 million a year, part of a $28 million total package. When you add in her other endorsements, her total income is north of $12 million annually. That is a 45-to-1 ratio. The WNBA provides less than 1% of her total income. The Nike commercial, with its custom sets and A-list cameos, reinforces the idea that playing for the Indiana Fever is essentially charity work for her. It's a hobby compared to the business of being Caitlin Clark, and this makes the league look cheap. During the upcoming collective bargaining agreement negotiations, the Players Association is going to point at that Nike ad and ask, if she's generating this much value for a sneaker company, why is the league pleading poverty? The ad has weaponized the players' leverage, and the league is terrified. But the tension isn't just between the league and the star, it's inside the locker rooms. We are looking at a full-blown civil war regarding marketing equity and race. The most combustible element is the comparison to A'ja Wilson. A'ja is a 3-time MVP. She is by every traditional metric the best player in the world. She has her own Nike deal, her own signature shoe, and her own commercials. But when Clark's ad dropped, the internet exploded with comparisons. People immediately pointed out the difference in production quality. Clark's ad was a cinematic event. A'ja's materials were perceived as simpler, lower budget. This has fueled a sabotage narrative. The idea that the corporate machine is rigging the game against black athletes regardless of their accolades. Whether that's true or not doesn't matter as much as the fact that the players believe it. This breeds a level of resentment that you cannot fix with a press release. Veteran players who were already skeptical of the Clark hype now see this as confirmation that meritocracy is dead. If the MVP can't get the Travis Scott treatment, then the system is broken. Commissioner Engelbert is reportedly terrified that this resentment is going to turn physical in the 2026 season. We already saw flashes of it in 2024 and 2025. The hard fouls, the targeting, the welcome to the league moments that felt a little too personal. The Nike commercial just poured a tanker of gasoline on that fire. If the 2026 season becomes a revenge tour where veterans are headhunting Clark to prove a point to Nike, the product is going to suffer. You risk injuring the golden goose and turning the game into a soap opera that alienates the very fans you're trying to keep. And then there's the Sheryl Swoopes factor. Swoopes has been vocal about her skepticism of Clark, and this Nike ad felt like a direct affront to her entire generation. By choosing to surround Clark with men rather than WNBA pioneers, Nike effectively erased the league's history in favor of its future. It reinforced the jealousy narrative. Clark's camp can claim the veterans are just envious, while the veterans can claim they are being erased by a corporate machine that only cares about a specific kind of superstar. Even the global rollout of the campaign was a disaster, highlighting the massive gap between the WNBA's ambitions and its actual infrastructure. The tagline was, "From anywhere." But when the ad dropped, fans in Brazil, France, Spain, and China found they couldn't even buy the merchandise. It was geo-locked to North America. The irony was painful. A campaign celebrating anywhere was restricted to somewhere. This was a massive embarrassment for Engelbert, who has spent the last year talking about global expansion and games in London. It makes the league look like it's still operating at an amateur level compared to the NBA or European soccer. It suggests that even with Nike's billions, the league and its partners can't coordinate a basic global product launch for their biggest asset. As we look toward the 2026 horizon, the ultimate anxiety for the WNBA is the realization that the league might just be a stepping stone. The scale of the Nike campaign raises a radical question. Does Caitlin Clark actually need the WNBA? Think about it. With Nike's backing, she could theoretically earn more money playing a global exhibition tour, filling arenas in Beijing, London, and New York, than she does playing for the Fever. The From Anywhere ad, with its focus on driveways and private gyms, subtly supports the idea that her basketball is valid anywhere, not just on a WNBA court. During the CBA negotiations, this gives her infinite power. She has already said this CBA is the biggest moment in the history of the league. She has the financial and political capital to demand a radical restructuring. She could lead a breakaway. She could demand a revenue-sharing model that the league isn't prepared to give. The 2026 season is poised to be the most volatile in the history of women's sports. The commissioner is fighting a two-front war against a players' union that wants more money and a superstar corporate alliance that has effectively gone rogue. The center of gravity has shifted. It's no longer in the league office in New York. It's on the Nike campus in Beaverton. The WNBA is no longer the sole gatekeeper of prestige. It's just one platform among many for the Caitlin Clark Show. The challenge for the league this year won't be selling tickets. Those will be gone in minutes. The challenge will be trying to govern a sport where the player has become exponentially bigger than the game itself. When the dust settles on the From Anywhere campaign, we might find that the WNBA we knew, the collective, the sisterhood, the 144 is gone for good, replaced by a new era of individual brand supremacy that the league is simply not equipped to handle. If you look closely at the footage in that commercial, there's a moment where Clark is just staring into the camera, standing in the cold. It's a shot of total confidence, and it should be, because she knows what the league is just starting to realize: the rules have changed. The lucky stars are no longer in the sky. They're on the feet of a girl from Iowa who just bypassed 40 years of league history in 30 seconds. The question for 2026 isn't whether Clark can win a championship. It's whether the WNBA can survive her success. The infrastructure is cracking under the weight of her valuation. The locker rooms are simmering with a resentment that feels more like a powder keg than a rivalry. And the fans, they're caught in the middle of a marketing war that has more to do with sneaker sales and media rights than it does with the pick and roll. This isn't just basketball anymore. This is a high-stakes corporate takeover played out on a hardwood floor, and the first shot was fired on Christmas morning. The fallout from the Lucky Stars comment cannot be overstated. When a leader tells their workforce to be grateful for the crumbs, they lose the moral authority to lead when the feast finally arrives. That Nike ad was the feast. It was the visual proof that the wealth is there, the interest is there, and the star power is there. By bypassing the commissioner, Nike didn't just market a shoe, they conducted a coup. They showed the players that the path to real power doesn't go through the league's headquarters. It goes through the fans and the global sponsors. This has emboldened the WNBPA in a way we've never seen. They aren't going into these CBA meetings looking for a cost of living adjustment. They're looking for a piece of the empire. And if the league tries to use the same old "we're a growing business" excuse, the players are just going to point to the Travis Scott cameo and the millions of views. The transparency of the money is the league's biggest nightmare, and we have to talk about the racial dynamics because they are the heartbeat of this entire crisis. The WNBA was built by black women. It was sustained by black women for decades when no one was watching. Now that the spotlight is blindingly bright and the majority of that light is falling on a white superstar, the friction is inevitable. When Nike produces a cinematic masterpiece for Clark, but arguably less ambitious work for Aja Wilson, it sends a message. Even if Nike's internal data says they're spending proportionally, perception is reality in a locker room. This creates a headhunting environment that is dangerous for everyone involved. If a veteran player feels like the league and its sponsors are trying to erase her legacy to prop up a newcomer, she's going to respond the only way she knows how, with physicality. We are looking at a 2026 season where every game involving the Fever isn't just a basketball game, it's a political statement. It's a battle for the soul of the league. As the voice of the league, Cathy Engelbert has to find a way to bridge this gap, but her options are limited. She can't tell Nike what to do. She can't tell Clark to stop being famous, and she can't tell the veterans to stop being angry. She is presiding over a house that is divided against itself. The Unrivaled threat was a chance for the players to reclaim their power, but Clark's rejection of it, followed by the Nike ad, effectively neutered that movement before it could even walk. It showed that individual brand power will always trump collective bargaining in the modern attention economy. That is a terrifying realization for a union. It means that the top 1% of the league has zero incentive to look out for the bottom 90%. If Clark can make 45 times her salary in endorsements, why would she care about a 5% raise in the CBA? This decoupling of interests is the ultimate destabilizer. The global failure of the merch launch is the final piece of this puzzle. It shows that for all the talk of From Anywhere, the WNBA is still a domestic product trying to play in a global league. You cannot have a global icon if you cannot sell her jersey in Shanghai or Rio. This logistical breakdown is the smoking gun of the league's inadequacy. It proves that the growth has happened too fast for the infrastructure to keep up. The WNBA is like a startup that suddenly got $1 billion valuation but still has its servers in a basement. Something is going to break, and in 2026, we're going to find out if it's the infrastructure that breaks or the spirit of the players who built it. In the end, the Nike From Anywhere campaign will be remembered as the moment the WNBA lost control of its own narrative. It was the day the league realized it was no longer the protagonist of its own story. Caitlin Clark is the protagonist now. Nike is the director. And the WNBA, they're just the venue. That is a hard pill for any sports executive to swallow. But as the 2026 season approaches, the reality is clear. The center cannot hold. The power has shifted, and the game will never be the same. The Lucky Stars have been replaced by a double C, and the driveway in the snow has become the most important court in the world. The only question left is who will still be standing when the winter ends and the real season begins.